The Republican National Convention is underway here in Cleveland, Ohio, and joining me here on Media Row at the Wall Street Journal set are some of the members of the host committee that made this massive event possible. We have Beth Mooney, CEO of KeyCorp, Sandy Cutler, former CEO and chairman at Eaton, and Chris Kelly of Jones Day, partner at Jones Day. Thank you guys so much for being here. First of all, we're here, we made it. How does it feel to have the Cleveland Convention underway?
It's very exciting, and our city is so proud to have this opportunity to showcase all that we've accomplished. And as a host committee, it was really our job to help mobilize all the civic efforts to bring what we think is going to be the best convention that anyone has ever seen right here in Cleveland, Ohio.
And it's taken more than 2 years of planning. Tell us what went into all of this work.
Well, many of us sat together in a conference room just over 2 years ago, and the question came up, should we try for a major convention? And the answer was very quick, why not? $200 to $250 million of economic benefit to greater Cleveland.
Right.
Having the chance, as Beth said, to really showcase our city as we think the great center it is. The details are mind-boggling, but I think you've had a chance to see this week. It's come together in a fantastic.
Cleveland looks beautiful, that you can just feel the excitement in the air. But there has been a little bit of controversy about fundraising, and I want to give you guys a chance to clear that up. You've been reaching out to some prominent donors about closing a gap that has allegedly been caused by Donald Trump's negative publicity and some of the issues with corporate donors backing out. Is that true, and have you filled that gap yet?
But let me maybe start with the big news on this one is we've raised over $58 million, the most money any Republican convention has raised in recent years. We're also ahead of the pace of the last several campaigns as well. It is true, as of last week, we had about a $6 million gap. That again is not unusual at this point. So we're very confident we'll fulfill this, we'll get it filled up. I think the real big news is Cleveland's been successful raising more money than any other convention, and that's really where we're particularly proud about.
Regardless of who the nominee is. Has Donald Trump made it difficult to raise money?
You know, this is always the point in the convention cycle where the difficult dollars are always the last dollars, so we're not at all surprised, and we are actually very confident that this last $6 million is within reach, and this is the first cycle of conventions where the federal money hasn't been available either. So if you think about our $58 million against a budget of 64, we've set all sorts of records, not the least of which, like I said, our great city. So we're proud and confident with where we are.
Well, and you mentioned the economic windfall here in Cleveland, $250 million. There are as many as 50,000 people who will be here spending money out at restaurants and bars and hotels. What else does a convention like this bring to a city like Cleveland?
Well, it was a catalyst for things. I think that is one of the great things about the convention. It was a focal point, it had an end point, and a number of projects that required a collaboration between a public and private partnership actually came together because people wanted to get it done. They saw this happening. Whereas if you don't have a deadline, sometimes it does not happen. So you take a look at Public Square, you take a look at the beautification around the city, you just take a look at all of these things, and it's just, these are permanent improvements to this city that occurred because of the convention.
And we believe many of them are, I think, assets for our city for a generation, not just for a convention. It's really been astounding to really see the revitalization of the urban core, and this was just, as Chris said, a catalyst to get it all finished, and it really does look great.
Right, and you know, speaking of Cleveland, I want to throw out some stats here. Not only did you just win your first major championship in more than half a century, thanks to LeBron James and the Cavaliers, but downtown Cleveland has a 97% occupancy rate, and according to a recent study, 23,000 jobs were added in 2015 to the greater Cleveland area. What do you attribute this huge Cleveland comeback to?
You know, if you go back to some almost 20 years ago, we set out a plan to get downtown living back to a space where we had 20 to 25,000 people living downtown. That economic plan, with both Chris and Beth referred to, has been a whole series of actions to really get ourselves to this point. You can feel the vitality in the city. You can't find an apartment in our downtown today. There are another 4,000 under construction right now. Most of them already have existing leases. This is a hot place for people to live today, and the downtown is a particularly exciting area.
So for cities that maybe don't have a LeBron James or a winning NBA team or a convention, what can you point to that Cleveland has done well, sort of a model for other cities that want to experience this kind of revitalization?
It's very straightforward but very hard. And I moved here 20 years ago, and I saw it even then, but it's just built. And that is the cooperation and collaboration between the public and private sides. Many cities, this does not exist. The public and private sectors are at odds with each other, or worse, actively fighting against each other. That does not happen here. And so projects can get done. Projects that need some federal funding or any kind of government support, but also private money to drive things. They just can happen here. And I think that's the single biggest reason why this city is so successful.
And I would add that in that partnership and in that collaboration is also prioritization. So some piece of what the city and public and private partnership tries to do is identify what are our top priorities, make sure we all align around them, and it has been about revitalizing our urban core, being a city on the move, bringing meds and eds jobs, and really sparking both growth in jobs, growth in our infrastructure, and creating Cleveland as a gem on the lake.